Oh boy, I'm gonna lose some fans with this one, and I probably might make some enemies after this one. But yeah, I don't care. You read in the title, y'all. The Warriors are in trouble. What do I mean by that? So the first half of last season, the Warriors started off 12-3, and ever since starting off 12-3, they arguably became the worst team in basketball. They became the equivalent of the 2023-24 Detroit Pistons. Okay, that's how bad they were. But Golden State got a deal done at the February trade deadline last year by getting Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat. Then they traded Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, Dennis Schroeder, and I think a first round pick as a result to get Jimmy from Miami. And Golden State became the second best team because every Warriors fan loves pointing to this because it's totally going to play into a war of a Western Conference next year. That record is so relevant. They were the second best team in the Western Conference since the trade deadline, which is great. They snuck into the playoffs as a 7th seed. They beat the Houston Rockets, albeit they were this close to blowing another 3-1 lead, which I don't know if I said this in my series recap video. If Golden State blew a 3-1 lead, even though Steph is a Hall of Famer and you cannot dispute his 4 rings and his MVPs, there would be for me, there would have been a highly difficult conversation to have with Steph because he blew 2 3-1 leads in his career. Obviously, we know the infamous one against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And let me be honest with y'all. They only won that game 7 because Buddy Hield, of all people, shot the ball like crazy, and he joins the list of playoff immortals. Obviously, a special shout out to the immortal Gabe Vincent, the immortal Caleb Martin, the immortal Lonnie Walker IV, if you know, you know. And then obviously the 2 immortal Hall of Famers, Terrence Mann and Grant Williams. Again, if you know, you know. Regardless, they won that series. Great. They faced the Minnesota Timberwolves, who I guess you could say they upset the Lakers because the Lakers were a number 3 seed. Even though some people don't really consider that an upset at all. I personally do not. But I think it's more of an upset with how they won. But anyways, enough about them. They faced the Wolves in round 2. Steph gets hurt early on in the series, and pretty much the Warriors season was over from there. And in that series, Jimmy Butler, and I think I said this in my series recap vid too. If I didn't, I'm gonna say it here. Jimmy Butler was really starting to get on my nerves because the guy couldn't be playoff Jimmy, the same playoff Jimmy that torched Drew Holiday and the Bucks in that one playoff series in 2023. He couldn't be that for one game. That was game 4. Game 4, Jimmy Butler needed to be that playoff Jimmy. He didn't have to be that for a whole entire series, just one game. But he was unable to do it. And because of the fact he kept on passing up shots, which he normally would have taken in Miami, I understand he was playing with a hampered back. But a lot of these teams are hampered at that point of the playoffs. So I'm not going to give Jimmy the injury excuse. He still played, and typically Jimmy playing through injury, I've seen him play through injury, and he played like an absolute beast with Miami, especially. So I'm not trying to hear the whole Jimmy was hurt excuse. But anyways, and I know, because I know some of y'all Warriors fans are going to comment that. But the aftermath, the Warriors lost in a gentleman's sweep pretty much. So what now? Obviously, they have the conflict going on between the Warriors front office, the head coach, and one Jonathan Kuminga. They're still kind of in a gray area with that guy because Kuminga, he clearly wants out of Golden State. Like, I'm not even trying to be funny. The guy who just wants to leave Golden State because Golden State has no direction. They have no plan for their future. And that was especially evident because if you look at it this way, I actually saw a post from Clutch Sports where they said, oh, the Warriors don't have a future without Steph. It's going to be hard to build around their future. And a lot of people, and I believe this myself, that, yeah, the Warriors had a future. The problem is Draymond Green punched that guy in the face, and he didn't even want to be there anymore. Or actually, I don't know if he probably didn't want to be there anymore. And the Warriors traded him for a 40-year-old Chris Paul. They essentially traded their future because they were so obsessed with Steph getting his 5th ring instead of, building your homegrown talent, which that was so uncharacteristic. Now, I know the Warriors had a turnover in their front office with Joe Lacob and Mike Dunleavy Jr., but back in the day, they were pretty consistent on growing their homegrown talent. Obviously, yeah, getting KD and getting guys like DeMarcus Cousins. But before that, they were pretty homegrown, and they were building off their homegrown talent. They were just lucky enough to get those guys when they were still pretty good. Obviously, DeMarcus came off a season where he blew out his Achilles, but with Kevin Durant, they were blessed enough to get him. But enough about that. The Warriors made zero moves this free agency because they're trying to stall the whole talks with Jonathan Kuminga for some odd reason. They should have gotten a deal done the moment free agency started, or at least make a sensible trade. But I don't know if the Warriors front office they're being too stubborn, or I don't know, man. And they never made any offseason moves too. Like, if the Warriors wanted to really improve their roster, Quinn Post, Trace Jackson Davis, and Brandon Podziemski, they're not your cornerstones of the future. They shouldn't be treated as such. These guys are really good role players. They're no different from, let's say, what the Clippers had in 2018-19 with Lou Will, Pat Bev, and Montrezl Harrell. You know what I'm saying? So if they really wanted to improve their roster, they would have gotten guys like Garrett Trent Jr., Luke Kennard, getting a man in the middle that could space the floor like a Miles Turner, even though Quentin Post is kind of like a Miles Turner light because he himself camps out on the perimeter and Miles Turner can bang down the post. Quentin Post cannot. But I guess Post in that case, again, he's a Miles Turner light in a sense. But even with that, they made zero moves. And for their whole entire draft, they drafted nothing but guards because they're so obsessed with the small ball era that worked for them once upon a time. And obviously it's not working now because in 2023, they got absolutely slammed on the glass by AD. AD feasted out in the paint. LeBron James got everything he wanted inside the paint. And that's because there was no real big man to protect the middle. And in truth, that could have been the case in the Rockets series. The problem is the Rockets sucked in the half-court offense. If the Rockets had a half-court offense, Golden State does not win that series. I'm sorry. And even if Steph were playing, the Warriors were not going to win. I know some of you guys are going to come at my head for this, but even if Steph were playing, it would have taken 1 to 2 more games for Minnesota to beat Golden State because I think Minnesota wins that series regardless. And even if they do win that series, they were not beating OKC. I don't care what freaking Hoop Report says because that guy is a Golden State Warrior fanboy that thinks that, Steph is going to win rings until he's like 48 years old, which that's not the case. But and obviously he hates Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because it's such a cool trend now to hate on the best player in the NBA, and which he is the best player in the NBA. Nikola Jokic, number 2. But they were not beating OKC because OKC can run. Not only they would have ran the Warriors out the building, 2 things would happen. Steph would have had to drop 35 every game for the Warriors to have a chance because Jimmy Butler, as good as he is, he would have struggled against that OKC defense as well. And also, the same problems that we saw with the Warriors when they faced the Lakers in 2023, those same exact problems would have presented themselves in that matchup against OKC, especially with Steve Kerr's really suspect rotations because he loves playing Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green at the 4 and 5 instead of, playing Kevon Looney and Trace Jackson Davis. But I digress. My point is that the Warriors are going to be a good team. That being said, they're going to be a good team in the Western Conference. I trust Steph and Jimmy to at least carry the Warriors into the playoffs. But the problem is they have to go up against the younger and more athletic teams in the Western Conference, and the younger teams only got better. Like I said, Denver won the offseason. Their bench is full of starters. Nikola Jokic is the second best, if not the best player in the world. Houston picked up KD, and they made a whole variety of moves, getting guys like Josh Okogie and Dorian Finney-Smith, 2 defensive energy guys that are dogs. OKC is here to stay. The Lakers got better. The Clippers got a better roster than Golden State. Then you have Minnesota, Dallas, and maybe they're better than the Memphis Grizzlies. The San Antonio Spurs are going to be making a run the West this year. And the Portland Trailblazers are going to be a sneaky good team. And the Warriors do not have enough to compete in the Western Conference. I don't care about 2022. Yes, that was a great championship. But a lot of y'all Warriors fans love milking that championship as if that were like the start of a three-peat or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was a good chip, and I'm happy that Steph got that ring and he got his finals MVP that he deserved in 2015. But that was one chip, and since then, the Warriors had nothing to show for it outside of 2 second-round exits, and they didn't even make the playoffs in 2024. I understand believing in your team, but it's just like at some point in time, you just got to face the reality when it comes to your team. The Warriors are not good enough. They're good, but they're not good enough to compete in a tight Western Conference because the Western Conference is going to be a battle. I do not see how the Warriors can be a top 4 seed in the West. At the very least, they could be 7th, 8th seed again, But with how Golden State went about their business in the offseason, again, that Jonathan Kuminga issue, it's still kind of like a weird gray area. For some reason, that's not resolved. And the fact that they did not even make reliable roster moves and they're trying to see if Brandon Podziemski is their next Golden State star, which, if anyone knows basketball, he clearly isn't. But, of course, Steve Kerr and the front office thinks otherwise. But if they really cared about getting Steph another ring and getting Jimmy that elusive ring, they would have made significant moves in free agency. Again, Gary Trent Jr. and Miles Turner would have been really good with this Warriors squad. Luke Kennard, same thing. Getting a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker would have helped. Brook Lopez off the bench would have been nice. But, they didn't even address those issues, and now they're stuck with mid-level role players at best. And here's the thing. I don't know why Warriors fans don't get this. The Warriors are getting older. I know some of y'all Warriors fans are going to say, well, Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond are still dogs at, 38, 35, and 40. But let me tell you this. Yeah, so was Old Yeller. Old Yeller was a dog once himself, and then he got old, and he died. And I'm going to be making a video about the Clippers on why I think even though I do think they have a better roster than Golden State, they're old as well. In 2025, Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond are not good enough against the younger, more athletic teams, and the younger teams are only getting better. Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy are not good enough to compete against those guys. Maybe for a game, but when it comes to the 7-game series, I don't know if the Warriors have a chance, man. And again, I know 2022, and I know they beat Sacramento in 2023, and Sacramento was a young team, and yada, yada, yada. I get they were the second best team in the Western Conference since getting Jimmy Butler, but again, none of that matters. Let's face reality. None of that matters. And I'm going to sound like a Golden State Warrior hater, and I know some of y'all are commenting that, oh, dude, you just hating on Golden State. You don't believe in Steph's greatness and Jimmy's capabilities and yada, yada, yada. Here's the thing. I don't hate the Warriors, and I respect Steph's greatness. I respect what he's done for the game of basketball. And Jimmy Butler, I had a whole lot of respect for until that fiasco he had in Miami. And then Draymond, I'm kind of on and off when it comes to respect levels because the guy literally bloviated about we're going to win the championship. And obviously, of course, he can't control injuries, but that's why you keep your mouth shut when it comes to that. I don't have a problem with you believing in your team, but when you make such a statement like that, you better go out and deliver. If not, you're going to get that type of performance in games 3, 4, and 5 in that Wolves series. Again, I'm not trying to hate on the Warriors, and I hope none of y'all think I'm a Golden State hater, but I'm trying to say it for how it is. The Warriors do not have enough to compete in a tough Western Conference, and the fact that they never made any offseason moves, and the fact that that issue they have with Jonathan Kuminga is still going, I don't care who's at fault, whether it's Kuminga or the front office or the coach, I do not care. The fact that issue has not been resolved and they have no offseason moves, it just shows the Warriors are in trouble. And again, they had a decent future with Jordan Poole. But because of Draymond's ego getting in his way, he punched the guy out to Washington, and now Poole is reunited with Looney Tunes. And that's another thing, too. You lost your premier big man over the years. And I wouldn't say he's a premier big man, but one of your better big men that you drafted in 2015. You drafted that guy and you let him walk to the Pelicans, which that's just brutal, man. Enough about this. I'm done ranting about the Warriors because I just have to, tell y'all how it is, man. Like, I'm sorry that this video is going to hurt a lot of Warriors fans' feelings, but if someone wanted to make a video about how overrated the Lakers are or whatever, or how Luka's not that good, I'll be down to watch it, not because I agree, but I want to hear their perspective. So again, I hope none of you guys think I'm a Golden State Warrior hater. I'm just saying it and calling it for how I see it. So could they win a championship? Maybe, possibly, but everything has to go their way in order for that to happen. And so far, it doesn't look like things are going to go their way because, again, the younger teams are getting better. And as far as I'm concerned, they could be a number 5th seed in the West, but I don't think they're going to go as far as people think. Hoop Reports might tell you otherwise because he's an example of a delusional Warriors fan. But the Warriors, they don't have enough to compete in the West. I'm sorry, but that's how I see it. But yeah, that's it about my rant about the Golden State Warriors. Again, salute to Steph and his greatness. but I don't think he has enough to help carry the Warriors over the hump, because I think I said this in my Warriors series recap vid, or I said it somewhere before, that Steph dropping 40 back then, and like from 2015 to 2019, Steph dropping 40 almost equals an automatic L for the opponent. Nowadays, Steph has to drop 40 for the Warriors to have a chance to win, and not even that's enough. I've seen Steph drop 40 points multiple times the last 2 years, and the Warriors still end up losing. And the fact that their roster is weaker, and again, they don't have enough to compete in the West, it's gonna be the same story. I don't care how good they were after the trade deadline. It's gonna be the same thing. So, Warriors fans, prepare to embrace reality. But good luck being in a tough Western Conference next year. But yeah, that's enough ranting from me. More off-season videos coming soon. My next video, I'm going to be talking about how good or not good per se that the Boston Celtics will be. So be on the lookout for that. Plenty more off-season videos coming soon. That's what I meant to say. And more gameplay videos as well. But until then, that's the end of this video. I'm X. Deuces.